Hello, I'm Rawn Clark. A viewer asked that I speak about the planets in relation to the Sephirot on the Tree of Life. So, I've said a lot about the structure of the Tree of Life in the past. But I don't mind covering it again because it's a favorite topic of mine that I owe this great debt to this image of the Tree of Life and to the philosophy behind it. It's opened my mind. It continues to open my mind. Every time I approach the tree, I learn something new. I experience something new. It's always fresh and revealing. It always reveals itself the more you contemplate it. So, I'll just start out by saying, first off, that the planets do not equal the Sephirot. The Sephirot are in no way associated with the planets in true Hebrew Kabbalah. Now, there's Golden Dawn Kabbalah, the Golden Dawn Tree of Life, which everybody deals with because it's everywhere. And frankly, in my opinion, it's a piece of garbage. It's a big error. I've seen a document, I think it was from sometime in the 14th, maybe 15th century. Someone discovered the Tree of Life. Someone from the West, as in probably Victorian England, or no, not Victorian England, but probably in England, perhaps France, discovered this document that was new to them, and it showed the Tree of Life. And they hurriedly copied it down. They copied the names correctly, and then it came to the letters, and they were sort of like in a rush, and they just put the letters in sequence down the tree, sort of. And that became the standard in Western Hermetic traditions of the Tree of Life. But it's fundamental error, and you cannot really, it doesn't sing if it's incorrect in that way. And it has to do with the assignment of the letters and what the letters mean. Okay? So we'll go through the tree of the true Hebrew Tree of Life, taken directly from the Sephirot, which is the oldest known or recognized fully Kabbalistic writing that remains. There were obviously things written before, but that was the latest that remains from about the 1st century BC, I think. Any rate, the Sephirot is the point at which all more modern, shall we say, written Kabbalah emerges. It's the source for Hebrew Kabbalah. Okay, so the Sephirot presents the 32 paths of wisdom. Now, these are the 10 Sephirot and the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And they are drawn from the book of Genesis. The first chapter of the book of Genesis has these 32 items, shall we say, enumerated in code, basically. But it's a fairly simple code. If you get Aryeh Kaplan's Sephirot, it's all in there. He does such an excellent job of explaining the Sephirot. So, the 32 paths of wisdom are the 10 Sephirot plus the 22 Hebrew letters, the letters themselves, okay? So, we have 10 Sephirot. Now, Sephirot describes always balance. It's always about balance and equilibrium. So it's 5 against 5, like the 5 fingers of the 2 hands, okay? The only logical array for these 10 components plus the 22 letters is what I call the Gra tree, what Aryeh Kaplan also referred to as the Gra tree or the natural array. Okay, this is the 10 Sephirot laid out in their natural order. Okay, the tree that we're all familiar with that drops down the middle pillar, pulls Tiferet down and Yesod, and has Malkuth just dangling at the bottom. This is a totally different thing than what the Sefer Yetzirah presents. In my mind, that is reflective of the idea of the fall of man, okay? Which these are religious things that I have no involvement with. For me, the Tree of Life is not a religious statement. It is a cosmologic statement. It is a description of the pattern which everything is built from. Everything that exists reflects the pattern of the Tree of Life in its own unique way. Infinite variety in the same pattern, okay? That is a fundamental principle seen throughout the book of Genesis, okay? Any rate, we have 10 Sephirot. Now, in this natural array, we can see several different groupings of the Sephirot. There are the pillars. The right-hand side is the pillar of mercy, the pillar of force. And the left-hand side is the pillar of severity, the pillar of form. Force and form. Okay, and the middle pillar is the pillar of awareness itself, the pillar of self-awareness. Okay? Now, there's also another grouping that occurs. It's a grouping of quadrants. There's the first 4 at the top, Kether, Chokmah, Bina, and Tiferet. This establishes the basic set of relationships between the Sephirot. Okay? The next quadrant is Tiferet, Gedula, Gebura, Yesod. This is the same set of relationships as the upper quadrant of Kether, Chokmah, Bina, and Tiferet. So in this next quadrant, Tiferet becomes the Kether to Gedula and Gebura and Yesod, in the same way that Kether is the Kether to Chokmah, Bina, and Tiferet. Is that making any sense? Then there is the third lowest quadrant, which is Yesod, Netzach, Chod, and Malkuth. Okay? So, now next we have the mother letters, the three. These aren't exactly the elements in the Hermetic sense, but the elements in the Hermetic sense come from the mother letters. The mother letters are sort of, shall we say, the greater principle of the three elements, the three true elements. Earth is not really considered a true element because it's really just the action of the three elements together, okay? So there's, in filling that upper quadrant between Chokmah and Bina is the letter Shin for fire. Now, this is the cosmic fire. This quadrant outlines the supernal, non-sequential realm as it descends into Tiferet, the beginning, shall we say, of the temporal sequential realm. Okay? That upper quadrant is the supernal realm. The next quadrant is the mental realm, leading into the astral realm in Yesod. And the lower quadrant is the astral realm, leading into the physical realm in Malkuth. So Shin defines the supernal realm, and it is a force, and it moves from right to left. It flows from Chokmah to Bina. It begins all movement between these different stages of awareness. See, that's what the Sephirot are. They are the definable stages of awareness between the I and the temporal present moment. Okay? It's all just a human construct. It's all a symbol that we use to grasp the ungraspable. Nothing in our sequential realm, in our sequentialized communication and thinking, etc., can grasp the wholeness of the non-sequential. Okay, and what we're talking about here is non-sequential. It's not Kether, then Chokmah, then Bina, then, It's all one thing that occurs simultaneously. Parts of it are sequential, and our experience is sequential because that's where we are in the scheme of things. But, so this is just a symbol. The symbol is not the thing, okay? It's just a symbol. It leads us in our understanding, coming to an understanding. Okay, so we have defined 10 totally artificial and arbitrary types or levels of awareness in this whole body of awareness that is the cosmos, okay? So, that non-sequential bit up at the top, Kether, Chokmah, and Bina, leading into the sequential universe in Tiferet, is defined by the movement of essential meaning, the movement of awareness. This is what it's all about here. It's all about the movement of awareness throughout these 10 arbitrary stations or levels or types of awareness. Okay? So it's a very dynamic thing. You know, that first movement with the Shin, that movement from essential meaning to essential form. It's the movement of essential meaning. That is the movement of the Ketheric awareness. It's the movement of the I as it is conscious of its entire being, okay? Yeah. So that movement, that initial movement from right to left, from force to form, is Shin, fire. Then in the middle is the Aleph, the air. Now the Aleph is meaning, not essential, objective, non-sequential meaning, essential meaning, but a subjective meaning. It's the meaning that defines the mental realm, the temporal mental realm, the sequential mental realm. Okay? From Gedula to Gebura, from mercy to severity, from the connectedness of everything to the individualized, totally unique, that continuum of subjective meaning is Aleph, the air. And it moves, it blows, as it were, from Gedula into Gebura. It's Gedula that conveys the awareness into Gebura. It fills Gebura with life, okay? So again, a movement from the pillar of force into the pillar of form, okay? And then finally, the lower quadrant, the astral into physical realm, is the water, and the mother letter of water, Mem, that flows from Netzach into Chod, from victory into splendor. And this is the force of significance that flows from the pillar of force into the pillar of form. And significance is a personal thing. It's all about how things, everything relates to me, how things relate to each other, how things resonate or experience dissonance. Okay? That is the water. And all three of the mother letters move from the pillar of force into the pillar of form. And they intersect the pillar of awareness, the pillar of self. These three specific intersections that separate the levels of self-awareness. Okay? Again, these are totally arbitrary, but they work. You know, they work as an intellectual construct that opens us up to the super intellectual meaning behind the symbol. It functions very well. So we have the three mothers here suddenly amidst all these 10 Sephirot, and there begins to be movement, movement, movement in this dynamic that we're creating. Now we have the 7 double letters. Now, the double letters, these 7 letters, have all of them, except for one, have two ways in which it is pronounced. Okay? Like Gimel can be G or J. Daleth can be D or T. Kaf can be K or K. Pe can be P or F. one exception to that is Resh. In Hebrew, there is only one pronunciation of Resh. There are no two ways to pronounce it. Now the double letters, which way it's pronounced, each of them pronounced, involves, it's noted by the use of the dagesh, which is a dot in the center of the letter, okay? Now Resh does take dagesh in certain circumstances, but it doesn't change the pronunciation in Hebrew, okay? Now this Resh sticks out in this combination of 7 letters. And in the Sephirot, it tells us that it is in the middle. It separates 3 from 3. And we see that when we put the letters on the tree. Beth, this is Saturn, the outermost planet. It is, of course, the highest of the planetary letters in that it emanates from the higher Sephirot. This is how we judge sequence in the tree of life. Okay? So, this emanates from Kether and goes down to Tiferet. It establishes the solitary self, that little bit, that little flickering flame of the I that inhabits everything in the sequential realm. Okay? So that is the path of Saturn. Saturn does not associate with any of the Sephirot, okay? It has nothing to do with Bina at all, okay? Saturn goes from Kether to Tiferet. Now, when you're traveling down that path of Saturn to Tiferet, there is a constriction, a feeling of just intense constriction of the awareness. You coming from the awareness of the I, which is infinite, and squeezing it down into a singular, little, infinitely finite point in a solitary self in the temporal realm, okay? So, that's the Saturn constriction. When traveled in the opposite direction, it is the exact opposite. It's a liberation. It's an opening up. It's, it's that other face of Saturn. Saturn's the great limiter, but also the great liberator. What's beyond Saturn is infinity, at least in the ancient cosmology, which saw Saturn as the outermost planet. So it had all of that symbolism attached to it, okay? It's all about symbols here. Symbols symbolizing meaning, essential meaning right here. Okay, now, the second of the double letters is Gimel, which means camel. Now, Gimel is second because it emanates from Chokmah and enters into Gedula. So this is Jupiter. Jupiter sort of creates in part Gedula. But Gedula is so much more than Jupiter. Gedula also emanates Venus. So Gedula is just as much Jupiter as it is Venus. So to assign Jupiter to Gedula is an error, and you cannot fully comprehend the Sephirot if you assign the planets to them. Likewise, you cannot fully understand the role of the planets, the essential meaning of the planets, if you assign them to the Sephirot, because they're not Sephirot, they're the planets. These are the folks, the powers that are moving in that energy flow of the tree, in that descent of awareness from these three quadrants, from one quadrant into the next quadrant, into the next quadrant, okay? So, Jupiter, right here. Then, over here we have Daleth, which is Mars. And Mars, instead of being part of Gebura, which it's not, is the influence from Bina that Bina has over Gebura, which is very directly to say the influence that the greater self has over the individual self. The essence of the character comes from Bina through the path of Mars into Gebura. And Gebura is what makes each thing itself, its own unique, utterly unique, infinitely unique self. That comes from Bina through the path of Mars into Gebura. And that tells you what the real meaning of Mars is. It's not the warrior, it's not the killer, it's not the warrior. No, not at all. It's what gives us each our own unique power in Gebura, the individual self. Now next is the path of the sun, right in the center here. But I'm going to wait on that for a second. So we then have the path of Venus. See, it is the order of the planets: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. This is standard. You don't have to use the Sephirot to achieve that same order. And when I think that whole idea really evolved from not understanding the letters at all and needing to incorporate the planets in the Tree of Life. And the realization that there are more planets out there. That changed everything, right? Because then you've got to have, 10 places to put all these planets, right? Okay. Anyway, so we have Venus down here between Gedula and Netzach. So Venus very much creates Netzach. Netzach very much has the nature of Venus, but it's more than Venus. It plays a much bigger role than Venus. Venus is one of the travelers along the flow, okay? Then we have Mercury over here going between Gebura and Hod. Between the core individuality, the uniqueness, the power of the individual self, and the power of the individual mind, the individual intellect, the individual ability to say for itself, to decide for itself. And it's Mercury. So Hod is more than Mercury. It's more than that ability. It's way more. It's the infinite splendor. It's what captivates us. Okay? And then there's the moon, right here between Yesod and Malkuth. And that is what binds us to the rhythm of physical being. Okay? It's the lowest, most intimate of the planets, the ancient planets. Okay? So we come back to the Resh. Now, the Sefer Yetzirah tells us some things about the arrangement of, it doesn't specifically say the horizontal for the mother letters, the vertical for the planetary letters, and the diagonal for the simple letters, the zodiacal letters. It doesn't specifically say that, but it basically does, just by the directions, what it says about the letters, like the Aleph being perfectly in the middle between the Mem and the Shin. Now, the Resh, it says, in a couple of different places, it refers to it as the center between the three below, or the three who face the three. Three facing the three. Okay? It's all right here in the middle. The Resh. And it has the specific thing. It creates the exact middle of the tree of life. This cross being between the Resh and the Aleph. In other writings of Kabbalah, that is significant, okay? It is the heart, the beating heart, as it were, of the tree of life, right there. So much happens right there in the middle, okay? So, this is obviously the Resh. The sunlight flowing from Sephirot onto Yesod, that is then passed as moonlight down into Malkuth. It's really the Catholic brilliance flowing down into Sephirot, which is changed into sunlight flowing down into Yesod, which is changed into moonlight flowing down into Malkuth. See, there's things you cannot understand about the planets and the dynamic movement of the planets, because the planets are the movers in the heavens. They're the things that we looked up and saw were moving quickly, not like the stars, which take forever to move, and then the comets, which, oh my God, when they move through the sky, that's something to be worried about. These are all symbols. These are all really deep, deep human symbols that, cover all sorts of different cultures. So I think the tree of life, the Kabbalah, basic cosmology of the Kabbalah, is really, truly ancient, far more ancient than the first Hebrews. Okay? Okay. So we have now the 3 mother letters and the 7 planetary letters, and we have a structure here to the tree of life. To this movement of awareness throughout. We cover every bit of the 10 Sephirot with this structure. But next, we have the 12 simple letters, elementary letters, elemental letters, the zodiacal letters. They each have just one pronunciation. and they're not a mother letter. So they are the 12 simple letters, and each one of them in sequence throughout the alphabet is assigned to a zodiacal sign. Now, these are the timekeepers. These are the paths that give context. This is the domain in which we are working, yada, 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 okay? So these give context to the travelers along amongst the flow of awareness from the I to the temporal present moment, okay? Now, these define the quadrants. The first four of them up here, we have Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, okay? Then we have Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, okay? Then we have Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So they are each, as this little diagram shows, divided into their elements. Fire, fire, fire. Earth, earth, earth. Air, air, air. Water, water, and water. Okay? So these solidify the structure of the tree of life. You know, it can't move in any direction now because it's a solid foundation for awareness and the ways that awareness moves. The understanding that this diagram is capable of imparting to your mind of the zodiacal signs and what they mean, to me it's been the best teacher, you know, of what these signs mean. It means the path of Aries, right here between Kether and Chokmah. This is what the sign of Aries means. It means the same thing as that transition of awareness between the I and Chokmah. You travel that path. You take that journey for yourself. You shift for yourself your awareness from the I to Chokmah, and you will know what Aries is. That's true with any of these diagonal paths, the elemental, zodiacal paths. Okay? So that is the true Hebrew structure of the tree of life, taken directly from the Sephirot. It is the essence of the tree of life. It is, for me, the most workable form of the tree of life. Now, there's also what I call the Hebrew tree of life, which is the tree of life image used in Judaism. For the most part, it's one of 3 that are actually used, none of which equate to the Western Hermetic one. That is unique unto itself. So this, what I'm calling the Hebrew tree. Now it has the Sephirot's attribution of letters to the past, not the Western Hermetic garbage, the the true, accurate attribution of the letters to the past. So it makes more sense from a Hebrew Kabbalistic perspective than the Western Hermetic version. The other versions in the Hebrew tradition are very specific to different sort of sects, as it were, of Kabbalah. But they're basically the same thing. It's the existence, human existence after the theoretical fall of humanity into sin, whatever. But to me, that's irrelevant to the cosmology that the tree of life presents, the Gra or natural array, the Gra tree of life presentation is an accurate presentation of the cosmos as a whole, whereas the Hebrew tree may be a more accurate expression of the human universe, the humanized universe. The Gra tree, the only human influence, genuine human influence here, is in the symbols that have been used, not what is being symbolized, okay? So, I hope that, in the end clarifies for you that the planets do not associate with the Sephirot. If you're doing that, you are not going to understand the Sephirot in their fullness. You are going to be understanding only someone else's interpretation of the Sephirot, okay? As opposed to, honing in on the true essential meaning of the planets and of the Sephirot especially, okay? All right, that's it for this time. Bye-bye.